Good day to all the rSpace fans out there. Today, we've got an intense story about a wife that cheated, tried to steal the kids, and still tries to gaslight everyone about it to this day. Oh, this is going to be good. Let's get right into it. Little backstory. In my early 20s, I met my ex when I lived in Pennsylvania for a while. We started dating, and after a few years, we were talking marriage. So I joined the Navy so that I could better take care of her and a future family. I told her then if she wanted to work, she could. If she wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, she could. Whatever she wanted to do, I'd support it. Over the next decade, she alternated between going to school, having our 3 kids, and working part-time here and there. I put her through a few degree programs and vocational certificates. When I was in my 13th year in, it was becoming clear that I was getting out of the Navy, so I started to push for her to get a real job. I told her that I needed her to step up because I wanted to go back to school and get a degree since I helped her get a master's and a few minors. She begrudgingly joined the Navy Reserves as an officer in a program I recommended for like a decade. Well, she took to it like a fish in water and she excelled. She ended up getting recommended for a post overseas. It would be at least a year. Over the course of our marriage, she cheated multiple times. We would fight. She'd threaten to leave and take the kids because she knew I could do nothing about it because how the Navy works. I'd been in for 15 years at that point and carried our family, so I knew how it was. So we had to talk about it. I knew there was no way she'd be deployed for a year and not cheat. We agreed that we'd have a semi-open thing. We tried swinging before because I figured she'd people with or without me, so I might as well try to have some fun. We had rules: no relationships, safe sex, no one from her direct command. Same thing for me. That 1 year turned into 3 years with breaks every year home. The main story. So over that time, she had a really good friend who the first year I joked about wanting to hook up with, because I wasn't hooking up with anyone, and she talked to her about it without asking me. Well, apparently, she was down. The ex liked this idea because it gave her a sense of control. Well, over those years, me and the friend went from barely knowing each other to being best friends and talking multiple times a day. Well, the day comes between years 2 and 3 where I'm picking her up from the airport. When I went to pick her up, something seemed off. But it was a hard year for both of us. So I figured maybe it's the stress and give it time to normalize. A few days after I got home, the friend was talking to me and acting a bit off. She asked me had my wife used her hall pass while overseas. I told her that she told me she hooked up once or twice, but that's it. She asked me if I'm sure that's it. I kind of paused because she asked me knowingly. We go back and forth a few minutes because she was friends with both of us, but didn't want to betray her old friend. But didn't want me to be a victim of what she was planning. Eventually, she admits my wife bragged to her and others that she fell in love with one of the top brass on her base and had been sleeping with him the whole time she was there. I could get over the sex she lied about. I could even get over the relationship they formed. But what came next killed me. The reason this friend told me was she planned on stealing our kids. She was home for a little over a month. I was graduating in 3 months. Our plan we had been talking about for 6 months, maybe more, was she'd take the kids back overseas with her, I'd graduate, put the house up for sale, sell our stateside car, hop on a flight and come join them. What she told her friends, what she was going to do once she and our kids got over there, she would serve me with divorce papers and she'd be in a country where it would be next to impossible for me to fight her for custody. She knew I already put the house on the market. She knew I didn't look for a job here stateside because I was moving overseas with her. She essentially planned on leaving me, taking the kids, leaving me homeless and jobless. I confronted her about it and she denies it. I know she told at least 4 or 5 people of her plan and she seemed more concerned initially who told me instead of what she told me. She's a bad liar. When she's caught, she will never come out with the complete truth. You have to drag it out of her. I call a friend of mine who is a lawyer and ask for advice. He is a criminal lawyer, so he talked to a few of his family law friends before he gave me advice. Turns out where I am, if there is a custody dispute, the kids have to stay at the home of record. So while all this is going on, she's trying to convince me that she and this dude talked about it, but never planned on going through with it. She tries to make me believe we should continue with our plans and do counseling over there. So I tell her, okay, cool. We will delay the kids' flight to when I leave and the kids will fly out with me. She didn't like that at all. So I know her plan was to still go through with it like I'm an idiot. So I told her I had class that night. She has to write the guy and tell him in no certain terms would she be contacting him again and that he should never contact her again. I told her this needs to happen before I got home. I get home that night, and the first thing I asked was, "Did you do it?" She said, "Yes, I did." He knows, and we will never talk again. I told her to erase him on everything. There can't be any contact whatsoever. I was initially relieved, but I couldn't sleep. I looked at her sleep, and I just knew it couldn't be that easy. I opened my Facebook and looked her up, and then looked at her friends list. Sure enough, there he was. So I woke her up to my phone screen in her face asking what in the hell was this. She gave me some BS excuse about how she didn't want to unfriend him because it would look suspicious to her work friends. I told her no one looks to see who unfriends who and called her on her BS. We argued and I left the room. I was falling apart. I'm on the living room floor crying balled up when I hear approaching feet. It's my oldest teen. She sees me crying and she starts crying, and she lays beside me, which makes me cry worse. While we are both laying there, my wife walks downstairs, literally steps over the two of us to go to the laundry room, grabs workout clothes, dresses, and leaves. Me being an idiot still wanted to fix this, so I figure if she won't stop, I'd make him stop. I knew he was way higher up in the food chain than she was, and it would be a career killer for him to have a fraternization accusation when he and her were both married. So I chose to write him and tell him that I'd write his command, their parent command, and his wife. Got his wife's name from his Facebook profile and found hers, and you can find someone's command if you know their Navy email, if he ever contacted my wife again. The following morning, I saw he opened the message and blocked me on Facebook. So I emailed his Navy email and made sure that in the body of the email that I already had his command info and his wife's, so blocking me on Facebook wouldn't solve this and not to contact her again. So the ex comes back to the house from the gym. I take her upstairs and tell her that I wrote him and what I told him, and I'm crying the whole time. She immediately tears up and says, "Oh my God, he must be so worried and scared. Why would you threaten our careers? He's probably freaking out." At that point, I go cold. Her husband is standing in front of her, telling her the lengths he's going to go to make us work, and she's worried about him? I go for a long walk. I come back in the house and I tell her neither I or the kids are going overseas. She says, "Okay, the kids can wait till my flight." I tell her no, we aren't going at all. We're done. She's yelling at me and cursing me. She slaps me. I grab her hands and tell her don't ever touch me again. She's pleading and I tell her absolutely not. Then I leave. I start planning my exit strategy at that point. I don't come back for hours. When I come back, I tell her that I'm going to write up an agreement. She agrees and I'll try to work it out. If she doesn't, then I will be unwilling to. Our agreement stipulated that in the case we split, that I would retain custody of the kids. She'd have to pay 25% of her net income towards child support, and I'd get the house. She agreed because she figured she'd talk her way out of it like all her other affairs. What she didn't know was the only reason I stayed before was I knew she would just take the kids and leave if I didn't let her get away with it. But now I had options. So we went to a lawyer, had it written up, witnessed, then signed. So I play nice for the next 2 weeks before she leaves, with her thinking I'm going to bring the kids after I graduate. But I already knew I wasn't going to. But what steeled my resolve was one day while she's gone, her laptop starts going crazy. At that point, I'd never in the 15 years we had been together had so much as checked a text. So I'm trying to fight the urge, and I go close to it so it will stop making noise, and as I walk up, another message on a new messaging app comes in, and it's him. I'm like, this chick is crazy. I close the laptop. The day she's leaving to go back overseas, we drive her to the airport. She hugs the kids and then comes to me for a hug, and I asked have I booked our flights. I say no and raise my hand, letting her know I don't want to be touched. It has been me and my kids for a couple years since then, but she finally moved back to where we are a few months back, and it's been exactly as much of a struggle as you think. She's an entitled child and she's taken to lying about me. She's told our kids, her friends, her family, that I told her she deserved to get raped. Told her I used to hit her. Told my kids when they were visiting her that if they tried to leave, that she would call the police and have me arrested. Of course, it is all lies, and my two oldest called her out on it immediately. I talked to a lawyer, and they said I can't bring a slander suit because I haven't lost money for it yet, but I can request an injunction on her, which is currently now in the works. This is brutal, OP. This is why you don't open up the marriage for the sake of pleasing one person, and this is also why you don't stay with cheaters. The lawyer should have been the first person you contacted after the first time. One mistake or bad decision doesn't make the next one any better. Although I find OP's actions of attempting to save whatever fire was still there to be honorable, this specific situation had nowhere but downhill to go. I guess what I mean is in the future, either walk away or stand your ground on boundaries, but never submit. I'm so sorry for your hardship, but I hope you come out of this a stronger person. Good luck, and show her you will not be walked all over. Thank you for sharing your story, and thank you for your service.